Have you ever pondered the fragility of peace? It can often seem as fleeting as a butterfly's flight, as delicate as the morning dew on a spider's web. Imagine how vast the universe is, and how small we are within it. Yet within this smallness, one person can have an impact so significant, so monumental, it reverberates across the cosmos. This is not a tale of superheroes with capes and powers. No, this is a tale about an ordinary man who made an extraordinary decision. Stanislav Petrov, a name that might not be familiar to you, but one that carries immense weight in the annals of history. A man stationed at the precipice of global destruction, in the high-pressure crucible of a nuclear command center during the height of the Cold War. One decision stood between him and the potential obliteration of our shared. You see, Petrov was not just any man. He was the man at the console, the man with the power to trigger World War III. But the story took an unexpected turn. Instead of succumbing to the pressure, he chose to question, to doubt, to hope. And through his courage, he chose peace over war. His choice might not have been immortalized in stone monuments or glossy history books, but its impact was felt across the world, a silent victory for peace. It was a moment that highlighted the immense power we hold within us, the power to change the world with a single decision. This is the story of Stanislav Petrov, the man who chose peace over war, and in doing so, saved the world. Cast your minds back to the mid-20th century. Picture a world in turmoil where two nations, the United States and the Soviet Union, stood as the ultimate superpowers, each flexing their ideological and military muscles, locked in a bitter and complex game of cat and mouse. An era defined by clandestine activities, government secrets, and a race that extended beyond the borders of nations and into the cosmos. This epic competition was not just about who could amass the most powerful weaponry or the greatest number of allies. It was also about scientific progress, cultural influence, and technological supremacy. The era saw the birth of spy networks, space exploration, and nuclear deterrence, changing the face of international politics forever. The Cold War, as it was known, was a stark departure from traditional warfare. It was a conflict fought not on battlefield terrains, but in the dimly lit corridors of power, the quiet corners of research labs, and the secret agent-filled streets of enemy territories. A time where the imminent threat of nuclear annihilation cast an unsettling shadow over mankind. This was the Cold War, a conflict not fought on battlefields but in the shadows, where the threat of nuclear warfare loomed ominously. Enter Stanislav Petrov, a lieutenant colonel in the Soviet Union's air defense forces. A name that may not ring a bell, and yet, his actions have had far-reaching implications. Petrov wasn't your average soldier. He was a man entrusted with a responsibility that could have dire consequences felt across the globe. Stanislav Petrov was not a celebrated general or an infamous dictator known for his tyrannical rule. He was not a figure who was routinely in the public eye, nor was he a decorated war hero. Yet, in his relatively obscure position, he held the key to a power that was utterly terrifying, the power to ignite a nuclear war. Petrov's role was scarcely known. He was charged with the supervision of OKO, an early warning system designed to detect incoming nuclear attacks. His role was not for the faint-hearted. It required vigilance, astuteness, and nerve of steel. The fate of humanity quite literally hung in the balance every day he went to work. This was a burden of monumental importance, a burden that he carried with immense integrity. And so, the world continued to turn, blissfully unaware of the catastrophe that was averted in large part because of this unassuming man's actions. A heavy responsibility indeed, for in his hands lay the power to trigger a retaliatory strike, potentially plunging the world into nuclear war. September 26, 1983, a day that could have altered history. On this day, Petrov's control station screens flashed with an eerie message. 5 U.S. missiles were en route to the Soviet Union. Standard procedure called for an immediate retaliatory strike, an action that threatened worldwide devastation. But Petrov, faced this monumental dilemma, decided to trust his gut rather than the machines. He labeled the alarm as a system malfunction. His reasoning? If the U.S. intended to attack, it wouldn't be with just 5 missiles. This was a high-stakes gamble, one that risked his career, his standing, and potentially his life. But Petrov, in the face of immense pressure, chose to trust his instincts over the machines. His logic? The U.S., if it were to strike, would do with more than 5 missiles. It was a gamble, one that put his career, his reputation, and possibly his life at risk. His decision, however, proved to be the right one. It was a moment of high tension, high stakes, and high uncertainty. The world teetered on the precipice of a potentially catastrophic conflict. The alarm that had sounded was deafening, piercing the quiet hum of the control room like a blaring siren demanding attention. It was a warning, a harbinger of imminent doom. But Petrov, in his wisdom, saw past the initial panic. The cause of the alarm was not an impending attack, but a simple, natural phenomenon. Sunlight, that warm and comforting presence, had on this day turned into a false harbinger of doom. Its rays, bouncing off the high-altitude clouds, had triggered the alarm. It was an unusual, unexpected occurrence, but one that had the potential to result in an unimaginable disaster. Yet, Petrov's calm demeanor and rational mind shone through the chaos. His unflappable nature and unfaltering judgment allowed him to see through the confusion. He dismissed the alarm and chose not to retaliate. Petrov's calm and rationale effectively averted what could have been a disastrous nuclear war. In the aftermath of the incident, Petrov received no awards or recognition. Instead, he faced retribution for failing to adhere to standard procedures in documenting the incident. His superior officers were displeased, and his peers were unsympathetic. For years, his actions remained an obscure footnote in a classified military record, hidden from public view. His heroic act, which could have led to worldwide recognition, remained largely unnoticed until the late 90s. Decades later, the truth of what happened that day was finally revealed. The documents were declassified, and the world learned of Petrov's actions. His story captivated international audiences, and his name became synonymous with heroism. Sadly, Stanislav Petrov passed away in May 2017. Yet his life story continues to inspire, and his legacy lives on. He is remembered as a man who, with one decision, arguably prevented a global disaster. His decision that fateful September day is a stark reminder of the power of a single act, a single choice. It changed the course of history, averting a catastrophe of unimaginable proportions. In the grand tapestry of history, Stanislav Petrov's thread might seem insignificant. However, if you look closer, you will understand the true value of his contribution. He was just a military officer, an individual. But it was this individual who held the power to change the course of history, and he did. Situated in the heart of the Cold War, a time of escalating tensions and nuclear threats, our world was teetering on the precipice of destruction. The fabric of peace and stability that we had so painstakingly woven together was on the verge of being torn apart. It was in these dire circumstances that Petrov made his mark. His thread, seemingly insignificant, held that fabric together, preventing it from unraveling into chaos and devastation. His story is a testament to the potential that reside within each individual. It goes to show that one person can indeed make a difference. Petrov chose to believe in humanity over hostility, to trust in peace over war. And in doing so, he not only averted a potential catastrophe, but also reaffirmed our faith in the power of individual action. His story is also an enduring reminder that the path to peace often isn't the easiest one. It requires courage, wisdom, and a steadfast belief in the inherent goodness of humanity. It's a testament to the power of individual action, and an enduring reminder that the path to peace often lies in choosing to believe in humanity over hostility. And so, we remember Stanislav Petrov, the man whose name echoes in the annals of history. Petrov, a Russian military officer, found himself at the heart of an unimaginable crisis, a choice that no man should ever have to make. The date was September 26, 1983. The Cold War was at its peak. Tensions between world superpowers were volatile. The fate of the world was, quite literally, at his fingertips, when a false alarm indicated that 5 nuclear missiles had been launched by the United States, was confronted with the nightmarish specter of a nuclear apocalypse. Yet in this moment of ultimate crisis, Petrov stood resolute. He rejected the computerized warning, choosing not to retaliate and thus averting a catastrophic war that could have ended humanity. His courageous decision was founded on a deep-seated belief in peace, an unwavering faith in humanity. This story of his bravery, his steadfastness, even in the face of the most devastating potential disaster, serves as a motivating force for us all. It illuminates the potential within each of us to make decisions that can shape and indeed save our world.